We begin this hour with breaking news out of Pennsylvania and the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Luigi Mangione could face 4 federal charges on top of the 11 state charges in New York.
6-year-old Luigi Mangione is facing an 11-count indictment
made by murder suspect Luigi Mangione.
Accused killer Luigi Mangione remains in a Pennsylvania prison cell.
Luigi Mangione, an alleged killer and subject of public fascination after days on the run.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of the Uncut Podcast. On today's episode, we will be talking about an event which really occurred a couple of months ago, but an event that shook corporate America to its core. Obviously, if you couldn't tell from the intro, we're going to be talking about the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Now, there is a lot to discuss here, from the actual facts of what happened and what occurred to the public sentiment. There's a lot to unpack. So without any further ado, my name is Theo, and let us jump straight into the facts on this one.
And now the Uncut Podcast presented by Joe and Theo.
So, to really start off this entire story, we first have to look at a very brief overview of the events that occurred. So, on December 4th, 2024, United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was shot and killed in a Midtown Manhattan hotel while en route to an investor conference. Now, the assailant was 26-year-old Ivy League graduate Luigi Mangione, which was apprehended 5 days later in Altoona, Pennsylvania, after an extensive manhunt. Now, authorities uncovered a chilling timeline. Mangione arrived in New York City in late November, staying in a hostel and frequently seen it near the Hilton Midtown Hotel. Now, on the morning of the shooting, he was observed leaving his hotel and approaching the area where Thompson was gunned down at 6:44 a.m. The ammunition left at the scene bore words like deny, delay, and depose, pointing to a calculated act fueled by resentment towards corporate healthcare. Now, Mangione fled the scene on a bicycle, evading capture until his arrest on December 9th. Upon detention, he was found with a 3D printed pistol, a silencer, forged identification, and a notebook detailing grievances with the health insurance industry. Now facing charges of murder and terrorism, Mangione could face life imprisonment or even the death penalty. Now, public reactions to the incident have been highly polarized. Some view him as a villain, while others portray him as a symbol of resistance against corporate greed. Now, obviously, his upcoming trial and the results of that trial in New York is expected to intensify the divisive debate around this entire subject. But having seen the overview of what occurred and the events that happened, let's dive a bit into the factors here. So let's start at what exactly is United Health. So United Health Group, which is headquartered in Minnetonka, Minnesota, is a global leader in the healthcare industry. It operates through 2 primary divisions, United Healthcare, which provides healthcare coverage to millions, and its second leg, which is called Optum, which integrates technology to enhance health services. The company was founded in 1977, and United Health Group has grown into an industry titan, employing 440,000 people globally and reporting $371.6 billion in revenue by 2023. That was a 14.6% year-over-year increase. Now, United Healthcare, the company's largest division, covers over 50 million Americans and generates the bulk of its revenue, making it the largest U.S. health insurer in the entire country. Now, Optum, on the other hand, through strategic acquisitions, has created interconnected systems aimed at improving healthcare delivery while driving revenue growth. And by 2024, United Health Group reported quarterly revenues of $100.8 billion, underscoring its expansive influence with operations in over 150 countries. Now, despite its success, United Health Group has faced enormous criticism over its claim denial practices, AI-driven claims processing, and underpayment of out-of-network providers. Now, public scrutiny intensified following the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, which was a key figure in the company's growth. His leadership saw coverage expand from 44 million Americans to over 50 million, and earnings rising by one-third between 2020 and 2023. Now, it's important now to dig a bit deeper on the company's major controversies, and this is going to be a topic that we're going to be revisiting a couple of times throughout this Facts episode. So, United Health Group has faced significant controversies, particularly regarding its claim denial practices. Now, a Senate report revealed how predictive technology increased denials for post-acute services, really prioritizing profit over patient care. Now, allegations of AI automation in claims processing further fueled criticism, with a 2023 class action lawsuit exposing a 90% error rate in one model that prematurely discharged elderly patients from rehabilitation facilities. Now, the company has also faced accusations of underpaying healthcare providers. In 2021, a Nevada jury awarded $60 million in damages after finding United Health guilty of underpaying emergency room doctors. Federal investigations into Medicare Advantage plans revealed alleged overbilling through exaggerated diagnoses, with a whistleblower lawsuit implicating the company's data analytics division. Significant lobbying efforts also play a role here, which occurred during the Affordable Care Act debates back in 2009 and raised concerns about corporate influence on healthcare policy. Now, these actions have cemented United Health Group as a symbol of systemic issues in the privatized healthcare system. And of course, the killing of CEO Brian Thompson has reignited public scrutiny of the company's practices, underscoring the broader ethical dilemmas facing the industry and really intensifying calls for accountability, transparency, and also reform. So we spoke about the name of Brian Thompson. So who is this person really? Brian Robert Thompson was born on July 10th, 1974, and served as CEO of United Healthcare from April 2021 until his death in December 2024. Now, over the 2 decades with the company, Thompson rose through leadership roles in finance and business development, earning recognition as a transformative leader in healthcare. Now, as CEO, he oversaw operations serving over 50 million members, guided by a vision of affordability and accessibility. And there is some merit here. During the COVID-19 pandemic, he directed over $135 billion in aid to stabilize healthcare facilities, garnering praise for his decisive actions during that specific crisis. However, despite this, his tenure faced significant criticism, including allegations of insider trading and contentious claim denial practices, which really cast a shadow over his leadership. And we need to speak about these controversies, right? We need to dig in here because this is where the real core of the argument stems. Thompson's leadership was marked by controversy, particularly regarding United Healthcare's claim denial practices. Investigations revealed AI-driven systems responsible for increased denials, fueling public outrage and lawsuits. Now, these practices raised ethical concerns about prioritizing profits over patient care. Thompson also faced allegations of insider trading, including a 15.1 million stock sale right before news of a federal probe, which sparked scrutiny of corporate governance under his leadership. So, we've talked about claim denials for profit here, but let's dig a bit deeper. Under Thompson's tenure, claim denials surged, rising from 8% in 2021 to 22.7% in 2022. That's over 100% in a year. Now, many were linked to error-prone AI systems that delayed or denied necessary care. Now, public backlash intensified following reports of denials in mental health and elderly care under Medicare Advantage plans. Despite these controversies, however, United Healthcare's profits reached record highs, with net income growing from $12 billion in 2021 to $16 billion in 2023. And it is important to speak about the financial performance here just to give a picture, and we're going to dig a bit deeper, a little further down in the facts episode. But during Thompson's leadership, United Health Group experienced significant financial growth, with net income rising to $22.3 billion in 2023. While deferred care during the pandemic initially boosted the profits, the company's strategic focus on efficiency sustained this momentum. However, critics attributed much of this growth to the cost-cutting measures like the claim denials that we've been speaking about, which again delayed or denied necessary care. Now, there's also insider trading here, a very major situation for Thompson. Thompson and other senior executives faced scrutiny for alleged insider trading, with over $120 million in stock sold before a Department of Justice investigation into United Health's acquisition of Challenge Healthcare. Now, the trades, including Thompson's $15.1 million sale, coincided with a sharp stock decline following public disclosure of the probe. A class action lawsuit filed by the Hollywood Firefighters Pension Fund accused executives of withholding critical information, amplifying public mistrust, and raising questions about the corporate ethics of the company. Now, again, as we spoke before, financials here paint a very clear and stark picture of the company's profits under Thompson and the company's stark denial practices to its clientele. So let's look at the financials in detail. United Health Group's 2023 financial performance showcased extraordinary growth, with $371.6 billion in revenue, being a 14.6 year-over-year increase. Operating earnings reached $32.4 billion, and net income rose to $22.3 billion. The company also generated $29.1 billion in operational cash flows, surpassing its net income by 1.3 times. Now, the United Healthcare segment, which is its an insurance leg essentially, generated $281.4 billion in revenue, added over 1 million members, including 800,000 commercial members and 950,000 seniors in Medicare plans. However, Medicaid membership fell by 700,000 due to eligibility redeterminations, despite outreach efforts to mitigate the impact. When we look at the company's second leg of business, Optum, this leg reported a 24% revenue increase to $226 billion, with Optum Health seeing a 33.9% surge due to value-based care and patient service expansions. Optum Insight benefited from the Change Healthcare acquisition, which started the probe for insider trading, achieving a 29.8% revenue boost, while Optum Rx processed 1.54 billion prescriptions, marking a 16.4% growth. Now, despite these achievements, rising client dissatisfaction and ethical concerns really overshadowed United Health's financial triumphs, creating a really complex dynamic under Brian Thompson's leadership. While the company delivered shareholder value and really solidified itself as an industry titan and its industry dominance, these gains came amid criticism over denied claims and rising healthcare costs, really underscoring the challenges of maintaining public trust. There's also something to be said here about CEO compensation. Now, Brian Thompson's tenure occurred within an industry which was characterized by soaring profits and growing disparities. While specifics of his earnings remain unclear, United Health CEO Andrew Whitty earned $23.5 million in 2023, a stark contrast to the company's median employee salary of $66,000. and that gives us a pay ratio of 352 to 1. Now, the disparity reflects broader industry trends. The top 5 insurer CEOs collectively earned $75 million in 2023, while family premiums for employer sponsored plans surged by 52% since 2014, reaching nearly $26,000 annually. Now, United Health Group accounted for over 40% of the $371 billion in profits amassed by the top insurers since the Affordable Care Act, ACA for short, was enacted. Critics argue that ACA's mandates and subsidies fueled this consolidation, benefiting insurers at the expense of the consumer. With premiums climbing and medical debt burdening millions, public dissatisfaction grew, as reflected in Gallup's report of a 24-year low in healthcare quality perceptions. So let's really return at the claim denial practices, because this is a big one. United Healthcare's increasing reliance on artificial intelligence to process claims has drawn significant criticism. Now, investigations revealed troubling trends, such as 90% of the denied claims being overturned upon appeal. For Medicare Advantage plans, the denial rate for post-acute care services doubled between 2020 and 2022, with claims for skilled nursing facilities denied 9 times more often in 2022 than in 2019. Now, algorithms like machine-assisted prior authorization expedited reviews, but this led to high denial rates, relying on assumptions that most policyholders would not appeal. Now, human stories highlighted the toll of these practices. For example, a college student with ulcerative colitis struggled to really secure coverage for essential medication, while elderly patients faced premature discharges due to algorithmic decisions overriding physicians themselves. Physicians describe these policies as obstructive and really demoralizing, while patients bore the brunt of rising premiums and escalating medical debt. So, if it isn't apparent enough, we need to contextualize the greed here. Perceptions of greed within the health insurance sector are really fueled by executive pay disparities and aggressive cost-cutting measures. Now, United Health's financial success often surpasses industry averages, but its practices, such as the increased claim denials and reliance on AI, have drawn sharp criticism. Now, while the company's executives really reap substantial financial rewards, many consumers face rising premiums, mounting medical debt, and significant barriers to care. Now, these concerns underscore a growing rift between insurers' profitability and the public health care struggles that people deal with every single day. The assassination of Brian Thompson has further highlighted these systemic challenges, really intensifying calls for reform aimed at balancing profitability with equitable access to care. Now, on social media, there was a firestorm. The killing of Brian Thompson ignited, as I said, a firestorm of outrage on social media, with United Healthcare and other insurers becoming prime targets of public frustration. Personal stories of denied care flooded online platforms, amplifying the anger. And one viral post with over 70,000 likes recounted a surgery denied mere days before it was scheduled, highlighting the emotional and logistical toll of navigating an appeals process. Another user shared their experience of breast cancer surgery initially being denied, describing the process as both cruel and unnecessary. Now, this outcry extended to professionals like TikTok anesthesiologist Brian Schmutzler, who criticized the healthcare industry for placing profits above patient care. Journalist Taylor Lorenz delved deeper into the phenomenon with her blog post, Why We Want Insurance Executives Dead, which analyzed the emotional toll of claim denials. Now, while Lorenz emphasized that her post did not endorse violence, the intense online debate it sparked underscored the depth of public anger and resentment towards insurers. And there are a lot of frightening details here. Now, while many Americans express satisfaction with their health insurance, 81% rating it as excellent or good in a 2023 KFF survey, a troubling percentage face significant hurdles when seeking essential care. Nearly 20% of insured adults reported claim denials within a year, with higher rates observed among those of employer-sponsored or ACA-compliant plans compared to Medicare and Medicaid. Now, insurers often justify these denials as necessary to really prevent unnecessary treatments, but the delays and obstacles caused by these practices frequently block access to medically recommended care, inflicting profound stress on patients and their families. Now, the stakes are particularly high in critical cases such as cancer diagnosis, where financial motivations appear to influence decisions even more. Practices like prior authorization and AI-driven evaluations have compounded patient and provider frustrations. A class action lawsuit accused United Healthcare of using AI to deny elderly patients care systematically. Now, denials that were overturned over 90% of the time upon appeal in a court. Yet, many patients lack the resources to challenge these decisions, leaving their needs completely unmet. The consequences are devastating. For one college student, for example, a claim denial resulted in a $800,000 medical bill for essential medications. Now, investigations have uncovered tactics such as burying medical evidence and using rubber-stamped doctor approvals to justify denials. Delayed care worsens health outcomes for a quarter of affected patients, while financial stress and anxiety compound the harm. Although around 50% of appeals are successful, navigating the process requires significant effort, leaving many to struggle really without recourse. And inappropriate denials in Medicare Advantage is an enormous problem, and this is really the brunt of the criticism here. United Healthcare has faced intense scrutiny over its practices within the Medicare Advantage market. A 2022 report from the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS for short, revealed that the company frequently denied or delayed care that met Medicare standards, reflecting systemic flaws. Annual HHS audits have uncovered persistent issues driven by financial models that reward insurers for minimizing care. Between 2020 and 2022, United Healthcare more than doubled its rate of care denials after hospital stays, a surge linked to increased automation. Now, the rise outpaced competitors like Humana, which saw a 54% increase in the same period. Critics, including Senator Richard Blumenthal, have accused insurers of exploiting seniors to bolster profits, intensifying calls for accountability. Now, these practices have widespread repercussions, as we've seen. Administrative barriers strain healthcare providers, contributing to physician burnout and deepening patient dissatisfaction. For patients, rising premiums, which currently are averaging $25,000 plus annually for families in 2024, combined with frequent denials, exacerbate financial and emotional hardships. Calls for reform are growing louder, demanding a balance between cost management and equitable access to care. And there is loss of life here. It's not like these things are not very bad for people that are being affected. The impact of claim denials extends beyond financial strain and delayed treatments, sometimes leading to preventable deaths. Though it is important to say here that direct connections between United Healthcare's policies and fatalities are rare. The industry's broader trends, however, reveal alarming patterns. Denial rates under ACA plans average 17%, with some insurers rejecting up to 80% of claims. Automation has worsened the issue, allowing algorithms or unqualified personnel to issue denials without thorough medical review. Now, these practices have led to tragic outcomes. Cases range from a newborn denied additional NICU care to a diabetic amputee denied essential mobility aids. In one really heartbreaking instance, a patient's denial of life saving medication resulted in a fatal heart attack. Now, although over 90% of appealed denials are eventually overturned, the initial rejection process often causes irreparable harm. Now, the consequences of systemic denial practices are staggering. Estimates suggest 40,000 to 80,000 deaths annually due to lack of insurance, a figure that surged during the COVID-19 pandemic. Weak federal enforcement of ACA mandates for monitoring denials has really left insurers largely unaccountable, and public frustration has reached a boiling point, evident in the violent act against the United Healthcare CEO, which many see as a response to long-standing grievances. So there is a slight question here. Is there merit to the public sentiment around this story? Well, Brian Thompson's murder has brought renewed attention to deep-rooted dissatisfaction with the healthcare system. Now, United Healthcare, as a leader in claim denials, symbolizes the frustrations of countless Americans. Rising premiums, again, and I need to stress this number, averaging over $25,000 per family in 2024, alongside complex administrative barriers, have left families feeling burdened and betrayed. The killing itself, a premeditated attack, ignited polarized reactions. While leaders like Senator Amy Klobuchar condemned the violence, many social media users expressed anger, with some framing the act as a symbolic resistance against corporate greed. A poll revealed that 41% of young voters deemed the act as acceptable, really reflecting generational frustrations with the healthcare industry. Experts are warning here of a disturbing shift towards violence in addressing societal grievances, underscoring the urgent need for systemic reforms to build trust, prioritize patient care, and safeguard leaders and stakeholders. And it's also important to say this before really jumping into the discussion section of this episode. Is the whole industry like this? Well, the broader health insurance industry unfortunately shares many of the issues for which United Healthcare is most criticized. As the largest U.S. insurer, United Healthcare denies about a third of claims, far exceeding competitors like Kaiser Permanente and Blue Cross Blue Shield. Common reasons for denials include claims labeled as not medically necessary, documentation errors, or procedures deemed experimental. The company's reliance on AI-driven systems has drawn particular criticism for rejecting treatments which are even recommended by doctors themselves. Competitors like Cigna, Anthem, and Aetna have faced similar controversies, such as Cigna's infamous denial of a liver transplant in 2007 that resulted in a patient's death. However, United Healthcare's scale and practices make it a focal point for public anger. Its reputation as a symbol of corporate greed in privatized healthcare really underscores the urgent need for reforms to prioritize patient care over profits, addressing the systemic flaws that honestly harm millions every single year. Now, the facts are one thing here, but there is still a lot to discuss. So for that, I really want to welcome my co-host Joe to the show. Joe, welcome. And with all the facts that were really presented, I want to kick this off and I want to speak about the elephant in the room. I think it's very important that we do that. In your opinion, with all the facts that you've seen, with everything that you've heard on the news, was the killing of Brian Thompson warranted?
Well, hello, Theo. It's good to be back on the podcast, coming back from holidays and all that. Happy New Year to you. Hope everything. Hope you had a good holiday season. It's not like we didn't see each other, but yeah, was it warranted? Obviously not. I don't think anybody condemns a killing, no matter what it stands for. At the end of the day, is Brian Thompson truly? Is his death really going to change anything? Not really. Like he's replaceable. He's not irreplaceable in the system. He's a cog in the hole, and they're going to put somebody else there, and it's not going to change anything. But what is coming to light is basically, the backlash that's came out of it, or lack of backlash, rather. It's the sentiment that's coming from it. Where I think a lot of people, and I think most famously Bill Burr, the comedian, who I think has gotten the most backlash over all of this, has said it. It's like enough's enough with these claims being denied every single time, and for the rest of the world looking on it, us being outside of the United States, looking at it, like we kind of laugh at it because it is kind of a farce to a certain degree, right? Where we've never really seen claims of this extent be denied, especially the amount of money that gets spent per year, like you alluded to, that gets spent per year for most individuals, and then they have to debate whether or not they might even be able to obtain the care they need is ridiculous. It's, you're not talking about cheating a system. You're talking about having the essential needs and services that you require to live, and for most people to live a normal day-to-day life. And we didn't discuss it too much in the fact, but when you look at Luigi Mangione and you look at the past that he had and what maybe alluded to the killings, we don't know yet until the court date, unfortunately. But an idea of what people have been speculating or suggesting is that he's had a lot of back problems and a lot of claims that he had to repair his back. And for a 26-year-old, it's, not unheard of to have back issues, but, it was stopping him from his day-to-day life, preventing him from doing what he wanted to do, surf, most cases have sexual relations and like all this type of stuff, and being denied the ability to fix the issue that he had, might have led to him doing what he ultimately did with United Health and Brian Thompson. And granted, that's just suggestions and just kind of conspiracy about what's going out there. But we're going to find out more in the court date. But at the end of the day, is Brian Thompson's death, should it be condemned or should it be non-condemned? At the end of the day, a death is a death, and you do have to mourn the loss. But I do see people, especially in the United States, who have such a deep hatred for Medicare, and like you've kind of touched on a lot throughout the facts, why they would have resentment or lack of compassion towards a death.
Yeah, and look, I do echo that thought, because at the end of the day, Brian Thompson was an employee, a very, 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 very highly paid employee, right? As we saw some comparative figures, he must have been in that range. But at the end of the day, he's an employee, and his job, and this is kind of an interesting question, because even through the facts episode, it's very interesting to look at these companies, because let's be honest here. Let's be completely honest. The CEO, as an employee, has a responsibility of increasing profits, decreasing costs, to ultimately bring the value of the company up to benefit the people that put him in place, which is the board of directors, right? The people that vote the CEO in place. That's the goal of every CEO. The problem in this situation is the business that these companies are in. They're in the healthcare business. Specifically, they're in a business which, for a lack of a better word in the United States, has no checks and balances. The companies like United Healthcare, they have no government regulation. The government doesn't really step in a lot of things, and we see it. Healthcare premiums are $25,000 per year for families, and yet companies like United Healthcare, as has been shown, are able to just deny claims and just delay it. And the problem isn't the denial. Again, 90%, and that's a very interesting statistic, which is why I repeated it a couple of times. 90% of the cases which are challenged, so let's say you get denied and you challenge it, you have 90% chance that it gets overturned and you get the money that's needed. But the problem isn't that. The problem is when it's denied initially, it can stop you from getting essential care that can save you from a very serious disease, or that you need a surgery right now for something that's important, right? So although the killing of an employee, because again, a CEO is an employee taking orders from a board of directors, he has a job to do, that's it. I do understand why this killing happened and why we're seeing what we're seeing in the public. And I have a follow-up question, having echoed that thought.
Well, wait a
Yeah.
second. But before we
Yeah.
before you, I have a couple of questions for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's keep this conversation going a little bit longer. You were basically saying, it's a business.
Yeah.
I think maybe we're looking at it the wrong way, and the question should be, should it be a business? Do you deep down, I don't know if that's a question you wanted to ask or not, but you deep down, do you believe this should still be a business? Because you've been talking about it from a business perspective with the board of governors and this and that. I'll say my point, then you can go on your perspective on it. At the end of the day, to me, this shouldn't be a question whether or not it's a business or not business. When you're dealing with people's lives and livelihoods at stake, this is not about the bottom dollar at the end of the day, and shouldn't be about the bottom dollar at the end of the day. As Americans, they call themselves the number one nation in the world, the superpower of the world. They are like they allude to a lot of the time, they are the best. Meanwhile, 90% of claims get denied on the first try. You, as a citizen in a country that has healthcare, that's provided to you by employers, that's provided to you by the governments, provinces, have you at any point been denied
In Canada?
first?
No.
And then had to go ahead and then reissue the reclaim? Never. Even when it comes to medication, you're accepted medication on the spot. You pay the difference from what your insurer would cover to what you're allowed to pay. Yeah, that's one thing. But you've never been denied medical equipment when necessarily needed and provided to you by a doctor. So I don't think the question should be, is this condemned, not condemned? The question should then refer to, should this basically be treated as a company? And I understand in this case, yes, it is, but take that away for a second and just speak in general with you. Should this be treated? Should somebody's livelihood be treated as a company? I think that's where the question should be asked.
Right, and that's a very interesting question. And that's really the question at hand here, right? That's the question that's being asked by the general public. I'm going to challenge you on a couple of things, and also here's my thought. The reality is that Canadian healthcare system that we have here, because that's the one that I'm comparing to, right? The one that we're living in and I'm using every day, has an enormous amount of flaws and inefficiencies, to the point where a lot of times it's completely broken, right? Now, I'm looking at the whole of the healthcare system. Here we're talking about insurers, which is just one part. The reality is in Canada, if I ever need insurance for anything, if I ever have a claim for anything, I'm covered. That's the truth. If my insurance covers it, if I have the insurance to cover what I need, it's covered. I don't even have to say anything. It goes through, no denies, no claims, no even checks or balances. The reality is, however, that the business still exists even in Canada. For example, Sun Life Financial, which is a big financial corporation that has healthcare insurance and insurance here in Canada, is still a business. The only difference here is that the government mandates a certain regulation on these companies and how they operate, something that doesn't exist in the US, right? Which, to be frank, I would agree with you in saying that yes, that would be required in the US, because currently the current system that exists is completely out of control. Right? Again, just thinking about it. you need a surgery because you have some sort of cancer that you need to remove the cancer cell, and your initial claim for that surgery gets denied. So by the time you actually have the chance to appeal and go through a court of appeals, the cancer cell has fucking grown, right? So yes, I agree with you, but it's always been a business. The only difference is how much the government is willing to step in and regulate. So I have a follow-up question to that, because this actually leads to a very interesting question. Was there or is there another way to resolve this issue?
Yeah.
How?
Well, like you just said, you gave the blueprint. Like, as much as we shit on and I want to go back to that, because yes, the basic regulations for the government to step in and put regulations in place so this doesn't happen consecutively, or for the corporations to basically smarten up and not decline 90% of the people the first time around and just approve it if they're going to approve it after the appeal process. But you alluded to it. Yes, the Canadian system is flawed, but the Canadian system is flawed for different reasons. Not one of them has to do with insurance claims. It has to do with how we pay doctors, how that happens. And obviously, like both me and you know this, we lack doctors here in Canada. And it's not because we don't have the facilities for it, right? We live in a city that's built not one, but two super hospitals that we can't fill because there's not enough doctors available. And there's not enough doctors available because the salaries don't want to be paid to those doctors right now. That's a different story altogether. But if you're asking me for the blueprint, look at Europe. You know,
yeah.
Look at Canada. Look at anywhere else but the United States and how they handle their healthcare service, and you have the blueprint. They don't treat it. Yes, and you're right. There is a financial aspect to it.
Yeah,
100%. There's a financial aspect to it. But at the end of the day, they value human lives over the financial aspect a lot of the time. And you can look at that as well here in the United States and in this situation. You know, and yes, I'm going to speak on the Canadian perspective. When you're sick and you're in the hospital, you know that hospital bill isn't going to cost you a life fortune.
Yeah.
Your ambulance ride alone isn't going to cost you $40,000, $30,000, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know that when you get admitted for a life-threatening disease, it's not going to be the end of the world for you financially, where most people are probably saying they'd rather die than have to deal with that burden. Like, I get it. There's a financial aspect to it, for sure. And there always will be. But is it necessary? No, it's absolutely ridiculous that we can sit here and have a conversation in 2024 and we're talking about whether or not, you know, these companies are making a financial profit. At the end of the day, like I said, you're dealing with a human life. They are your client. They are your source of income. If they go, you lose that client, you lose that source of income. Like, to me, for them to even be bragging about profits and all this, meanwhile, you're denying 90% of the people. And that's if 90% of the people even make the reclaim, make the appeal.
Yeah, because a lot don't even have the resources to do that.
Exactly, or don't have the time necessary to do so. And by that point, it's already too late. Like, I'm reading on things, and yeah, it's a little bit of a personal situation for me, but like, you're reading on situations where people have cancer and people have this and people have that. You shouldn't be denied the first time just to be like go through an appeal process.
Yep.
And then get accepted on the second time. By that point, 3, 4, 5, 6 months have passed. You know, at that point, you're going from a life-needing surgery to being financially in debt for quite a bit of time just to find out later it was approved.
Yeah.
That is absolutely insane. And for the rest of the world looking on it, I mean, to me and you, it's ridiculous. And like, yeah, we know a little bit about the United States healthcare system, but this is beyond incomprehensible. I'm sorry, but like, you know, a population of 340 million people, and you're telling me you guys can't figure out healthcare? So again, it's another situation where it benefits the rich. You know, but like,
Well,
it's a weird subject because you're talking about health and you're talking about someone's life and you're putting class warfare into it.
It's a very complicated and sensitive subject, and because I want to keep the conversation going, because it's important to talk about this, I'm going to play heavily devil's advocate here and take the evil side on it. The reality is this, though, however. United Healthcare, all the other big companies like Blue Cross Blue Shield, all of these health insurers, they made, I think, if I look at the facts again, about $380 billion in profit as an industry. That's over 1% of US GDP, right? And that's just the health insurance. Because what we're talking about here is a bigger systemic problem for the entire health insurance industry, not just insurers, but the entire industry as a whole, how it operates, right? So, do you really think that any president, any political candidate, would ever fuck with 1% of the GDP of their country, considering the fact that the US is running with one of the biggest deficits in the world? I don't think so. I think that although people are revolting, although we're seeing this, they're going to do what they've always done. They're just going to decrease claim denials by a bit temporarily. They're going to wait till the storm blows over. They're going to put another CEO that's going to say the right things. And then they're going to go back to the same practices, because this discussion really started with Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act in 2009. What did these companies do? They lobbied billions. And look at them now. They're still doing what they did back then.
And they almost lost it too. Shall I remind you, Obamacare still went through. But what I'm just trying to say is, you just said which president would attempt that. You just said the name right there. President Obama was one of them.
But it didn't work.
It didn't work, no, but it started something where at least people started to be able to at least afford healthcare. Afford it. Before, most people didn't even have healthcare. Now they're at least able to afford some sort of healthcare. So we're getting somewhere in this progress. Granted, you're talking about 300 years of history. I don't think it's going to change on a dime either, but still, we're getting somewhere in this progress. Then, granted, got a little bit undone by Trump as he tried to fix the situation. Then Biden happened, and now we're back to Trump. Yeah. So we don't know where this situation is going to go. But would a president be willing to fuck with it? Yeah, of course a president would be willing to fuck with it, because, again, at the end of the day, I understand it's 1% of the GDP, right? Theo, to me, as somebody who's an outsider on this situation, it baffles me to a degree of insanity, right? We both pay for car insurance. Me and you, statistically speaking, might never get into an accident at any point, right? But we still pay it. Doesn't mean we'll get into an accident, but we have coverage in case we ever do. Health insurance kind of goes the same way. You might never need health insurance, right? You might never get sick to the point where you require it. You might never break a bone. You might never do a lot of these things. You might never get ill in your lifetime till maybe later on in life, right? But you pay it anyways. Granted, you pay through your employment and other different things, but you pay. You might never need it. But when it does happen, as a Canadian, you know you're covered. Same thing with the car insurance. You pay it, but you know you're covered. You're not worried about it being denied, right? That's why you pay for a service, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same situation goes here. And they're paying $25,000. We're paying nowhere near $25,000.
Yeah.
And that's USD. Do the conversion rate. You're looking at about 33,000, 34,000
like
Canadian, something like that. At the end of the day, when I walk into a hospital, when I leave, there's no bill. Yeah, maybe there's a bill for an ambulance ride, sure, $100, but I'm not leaving in debt. It's the whole point of why I'm paying, right? If I break my ankle, I'm not worried about it. If I have to get teeth surgery, if I have to get a root canal done, I'm not worried about it. If I lose eyesight, I'm not worried about it, right? Where many, like we said in the facts episode, or the facts portion of the episode, at the end of the day, many Americans, think about it, you're going slightly blind. I'm already paying insurance and I still have to dish out more because I don't know if what I'm paying for might even be approved. Imagine you're a construction worker, you're on the job site, you break your leg. Is my surgery even covered? Because a broken leg is very dangerous when you consider the infections that can come from that. So it's like I said, I think many Americans now, and I think we saw it through a lot of the social media posts that go. And I'm sorry, I'm deferring from your question entirely about which president would fuck with it. But like I said, and I'm coming back to that. When you look at the social media posts and you look at the sheer non-fucks given by many Americans that this man passed away and this man was executed publicly, and that most of them are rejoicing and they're praising Luigi Mangione, who we have yet to talk about, by the way,
Yeah.
and I know we will, but have been praising him. And at the end of the day, these people are voters. Find me a president that would go against that right now.
Publicly, none. I agree with you.
It's political
Publicly, none.
suicide.
It's political suicide. That will never happen. However, I do want to touch upon the Affordable Care Act. Because, unfortunately, the reality is when you're looking at insurers, it's not really working that efficiently. Overall, all of the Affordable Care Act claims is about 17 to 20% that get denied. Still, humongous number. With some of the biggest, and I'm also including United Healthcare in this one because they are one of the biggest insurers, denying up to 80% of Affordable Care Act users.
That's still less than 90.
Okay, listen. But
still a lot, but
yeah,
I mean, 10% lower is
right. There's still like, so what that tells me is that whatever Obama did really did not work. It didn't, and the reason is I talked about it on the fact section at the beginning. The amount of lobbying which went in when this came out. These companies aren't stupid. They knew what was going to happen. This is what it ended up doing. Now, and that's why I said, will anyone really fuck with these companies? They won't. Because how do politicians come in power? They need money. They need funding. Who funds them? Not usually enough pharma companies, right? But still, enormous corporations. It's very rare that a president will always go against corporate America. It's very rare, right? So, and the healthcare industry, you brought an interesting question. And before we go on to the topic of Luigi Mangione, because he's another enormous part of this story, right? You said that, correctly enough, if I go into a Canadian hospital and I'm a Canadian citizen and I have insurance here in Canada, I don't pay a dime. So the question here is, what's really the reason why we have less expensive healthcare and less expensive health insurance here in Canada? Is it because the government just pays for everything? Or is it because the government is paying for the procedures in the hospitals? Because the hospitals are owned by the government? Because the doctors are government employees, essentially. They're not privatized. In the US, every hospital is a private business. In the US, breaking a leg is a profitable enterprise for a company. So we're talking this whole time about the insurers, but the entire healthcare system is interconnected. The insurers are charging a lot because the services cost a lot, because the services are privatized by individuals who have a premium to that. So a government needs to reform an entire healthcare system. And I want to bring in a bit of stats from an episode we did a couple of months ago about the election, right? To do that, you need to overhaul and spend about $3.4 trillion annually to have a healthcare system like Canada, where doctors, hospitals, all of those procedures are subsidized so you can bring the costs down where it becomes extremely affordable. I don't think the US is ever going to spend that, because that's astronomical, especially considering the $35 trillion they already have.
Yeah, what's another couple trillion?
Financial demolishment, that's what another couple of trillion would mean, right? So that plays an enormous role. And then you need to think about, a lot of these companies are publicly traded, which is another pitfall, right? So every single time these companies lose a profit or miss earnings or do not meet growth rates, which are arbitrarily, let's be honest, put on their earnings by investment analysts, right? What happens to their stock? It completely collapses, right? So this is a humongous chain. It's very easy to sit here and talk and say there needs to be reform. And I agree, there needs to be reform. This is insanity. I get it. I live in Canada. I understand the benefits of walking in if I have a broken fucking finger and getting it fixed without having to pay an arm and a leg to fix my finger, right? I get it. But we're talking about a multi-billion, if not, I need to check the stats, trillion-dollar industry here, costing potentially many trillions to essentially turn into a governmental enterprise. So it's similar to Canada. It's not going to change. It can't.
let me flip the script on you. You mentioned
Yeah.
Sun Life. You know, Sun Life is a publicly traded company. You know that, right?
Yeah, it is, of course.
Yeah, so I'm just saying it's not like it's impossible. It can't be done. And I know what you mean. There's going to be lost profits potentially in that situation.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, again, take the policy healthcare stuff out of the way.
Mhm.
Let's just talk about this. Let's go back to this point
Okay.
of view. The denial rate.
Yeah. Okay.
Can they fix the denial rate without affecting anything else? The answer to that question should be yes, because their denial rate shouldn't be affecting too much of anything. If at the end of the day, if what you're telling me, the denial, they still get 90% denial, then they go through arbitration then approves it. At the end of the day, those profits are still coming out, no matter what. So this is what I'm trying to allude to. Can they fix a denial system that's completely broken here? And I think that's what should also be another major focusing question on this is 90% denial rates when you're paying $25,000 an individual is ridiculous. By any stretch of the imagination is ridiculous. 90%. I mean, those numbers should be, if I told you 90% of anything, it's an insane amount of, it's an insane amount of a portion of something to have. So, even 10% is still ridiculous when you look at the population, you look at the amount of numbers that are there.
Yeah.
So can that be better? Yes. To have AI deny claims, that's even crazier. And I don't know about that, but
So again, I'm going to play the very bad corporate overlord here on purpose. The denial rate and the reason why they did that is cost cutting measures, decreasing the bottom line. If you decrease the denial rate, you have to pay out more. If you pay out more, your cost for serving clients increases.
yeah, but you're paying out more anyways. And if anything, it's going
Not really.
worse because
Here's why.
okay,
why.
no.
Yeah.
Okay, but let me just say my point, then you can go ahead.
Yeah.
So 90% denial rate.
Mhm.
Okay. Out of that 90%, let's say about 80% basically say, okay, I need to appeal this because I have no choice financially. Like, hey, I'm kind of screwed. So then they appeal it. So then you have to go through a whole other system now where you have to take time out of your day and actually probably go through the claim again properly to reflect it.
Mhm.
So all you've done now is pay for AI to do a denial claim, to send it out, to then come back, to then pay somebody else to re-review everything, and you just feel like that's easier to do than basically have somebody there the first time and just basically say, yeah, it's approved, even though it might take an extra period of time, whatever, 2-3 more months. I get that, but shit, to me, it just seems like you're just repeating the same cycle at the end of the day.
Okay, so there's a couple of things in your argument, which, okay, it makes sense what you say. It absolutely makes sense. But there are a couple of numbers here that do not represent the reality. So the 90%, so let's say out of 100 people, 90 do not get the claim. Okay? That's the percentage, right? Those 90 people, you said 80% of them will pursue to essentially fight for the claim to get it. The reality is that due to the resources it takes and the complexity, that number of people that will chase it is not that high. So the number is hovering way below 50%, which means that by having a 90% denial rate, effectively United Healthcare is really paying out 30% of maybe the claims. So that's where the cost-cutting measure happens. The second reason, then the AI specifically, is output. If you can handle more claims, that's how you go from 44 million Americans to 50 plus million in coverage. You don't do that with human manpower. It just costs you too much. Just put an AI system and run it through, right? So you're right if Americans, to begin with, were to hunt down these claims and were to say, no, I'm going to fight it in court. But they don't have the money to do it. Just take for an example the statistic that I gave. The average salary of a United Healthcare employee is $66K, right? Take a family of 2 United Healthcare employees. $66K, that's about $120,000 per year, give or take. Okay. For their family, $25K has to go to the insurance for health, for a family plan. So that leaves them with $100K. take out taxes, take out all of that. Do you take out the mortgage, take out the car payment, take out the kids to school, take out all this? How much do you think is left aside for them to pursue a claim against United Healthcare?
None.
There you go. So the ability for these people to actually pursue, even if they get denied, right, is close to none. So and that's the thing. This is why I said at the beginning, Brian Thompson is just an employee with a mandate. And whether we like to admit it or not, CEOs are not there for the benefit of their customers. They never were. They're for the benefit of their enterprise. Now, if the enterprise benefits from the well-being of the customers, different question. But the CEO's job is to just increase profits, decrease cost, and increase profitability to increase value. That's it. To do that, they increase claim denials, decrease the major cost, which is paying out claims, and increase the output of claims processing, which is done by AI. So now, again, it's a big question. This person, Luigi Mangione, which, again, we're still waiting the trial. We're still waiting for a lot of information to come out, because the information we've really gotten is drip fed. We're getting bits and pieces in this information, right, to paint a picture of this person. But he went ahead and essentially shot an employee that was, yes, he was in charge of the company that possibly had these frustrations labeled in, but he shot an employee that's going to be replaced, and the company's going to continue to do whatever it does, because the only way someone like United Healthcare will ever learn and change is if from 50 million people that it's covering, it goes down to 25.
See, but I'll say this: you keep saying he shot an employee, and I know what you're trying to basically imply is that he is an employee. But I think for many people, who view the situation, he's not an employee.
Okay.
He's in this particular instance, he's a symbol of what happened. He's, for the most part, he is United Health, right? I know he's the CEO, and I get that, but I'm just trying to say, in this particular moment, for many people, the way they view it, it's somebody going after United Health, right?
Yeah.
That's the way we have to look at it. Not he's an employee, and that better aligns with understanding what happened here.
Agreed.
And we've talked so much about United Health, and at the end of the day, United Health is United Health, but let's kind of maybe switch a little bit of the tone here, and let's go towards Luigi Mangione.
Yes, let's do it
himself, right? And we talked a little bit about it earlier, and maybe what the motives were behind it. So I guess now we can have a little bit of fun, because all this at this point is speculative.
Yes.
So
it is.
No facts as of yet. I guess we'll figure that out as the court date approaches and more comes out.
Pretty much.
But we can be a little bit creative on this side, and we can have a little bit of speculation going back and forth.
Sure.
I guess I'll get right to the question. Theo, do you think he did it?
Ooh. Listen, I've been seeing a couple of videos here and there comparing his eyebrows. They don't look the same, right?
They don't look the same. Every news outlet I think I've seen over the last couple of weeks, before we've had the chance to shoot this podcast, obviously with the holidays, our schedules being completely out of whack. But do you realize how it's been thirst trapping, huh?
A lot.
I've never seen a potentially convicted murderer have so many ab pics shown on CNN.
Hold on. I'm going to challenge you on that. There's a lot of fucking criminals that have gotten like commercial runway deals after their mugshots.
No. Mugshots, dude. Have you seen a couple of this guy's photo? Like, CNN's been showing him like washboard ab style, like in Manu Manu, wherever in Hawaii. Like, this is the photo they're running with.
Yeah, it's berserk. I understand.
Then you wonder why so many women showed up outside the courtroom.
Oh my
trying
god,
to defend him.
It's nuts. It's fucking insane. But it's funny. It's funny because I still see people online saying that it wasn't him. Now again, look, there's all this information and evidence that's around him. He was found with a 3D grafted pistol, with a suppressor, with fake IDs, running away, The funniest thing for me, or the thing that surprised me the most, is the McDonald's employee that called him out in Altoona, right? It's for a person that just killed one of the biggest CEOs in the US. Instead of trying to flee the country, you flee to Pennsylvania and go in a McDonald's. You
What's more
should be in
American about that?
hiding.
It's the most American thing somebody can do. You kill somebody with a 3D printed gun and you go to McDonald's for a Big Mac.
Jesus Christ, man.
No, but like, okay, so yes, he was caught with all these stuff,
Yeah.
right? But at the end of the day,
Oh, and also,
kinda-
don't forget the little memo book or his little diary with all the grievances that he wrote down.
the manifesto,
The manifesto.
the 246 word manifesto.
Thank you. So
More like a manifesto, that
Exactly.
situation.
exactly.
But that's what I'm trying to say. It's I don't know. It's too much of a coincidence.
It's a little too perfect.
It's a little bit too perfect, no? Like let's be honest. You just murdered a guy. You ditched the backpack. You escaped on a freaking bicycle, and you mean to tell me you got caught at a McDonald's and just so happened conveniently to keep the murder weapon with you, to keep, I guess, in your backpack. I guess maybe you just travel with it everywhere in case to show people a manifesto on potentially why you would have killed somebody. You know, if this is true, right? This is almost as stupid as O.J. Simpson when he wrote "If I killed her." Like,
Or when he went to the courtroom and he's like, "See, the gloves don't fit in my hand."
yeah, but then it's stupider. No. But you know what he did after that? He published a book saying if he were to kill her,
Oh, nice.
how he would do it. It's legit. It's a legitimate thing, which is not. You know, I think it went on to be the bestsellers, and I guess the family, you know, of the victim basically, you know, said, "Hey, look, you what the hell?
For the love of Christ, why are you doing this?
Yeah, seriously, what in the actual fuck?" And I think they got the royalties for it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Obviously, but no, but like, it's just to say, like why would you have this stuff on you and not have
Why not dispose of it?
ditched it? Yeah, and it begs the question too: how did they find this on him if he disposed of it?
Yeah,
Because the evidence it was showing was that he ditched the backpack and everything in it.
yeah.
So, like, so it's very weird of a situation. He hasn't admitted to anything.
Yeah, he hasn't. And he hasn't really spoken either. There's not a lot being said here, right?
No, I think they said it that they wanted the right to the fair trial. And by the way, you're bringing a potentially convicted murderer, alleged convicted murderer, into the city. And did you see the walk?
Yeah,
Like from the helicopter, you
not a
had the
walk.
mayor there.
That was not a
no.
walk.
That was it was a public shaming.
yeah, it was. That's exactly it.
It was and you know what? Kudos to his lawyer, by the way. Like she is, I think it's her and her husband. They lead maybe one of the biggest firms in New York or in the United States. Dude, she's 100% right. She's like, this isn't a fair trial. Like, look what you're doing.
Yeah,
Like, how is this fair? You're lambasting him before he's even been convicted of anything.
yeah.
Like you're like, come on. Does the mayor show up to when you're bringing in a criminal?
No, never.
No.
Never.
And like, not to be rude or anything, but you know how many people get shot in New York on a daily basis?
Many.
Yeah, like
There's been 2-3 reports that have come out from mass shootings in New York since New Year's Day.
yeah, exactly. We did a short on that.
We've done like
Completely forgot about it.
we've done 2-3
Oh,
shorts on
it's-
New York.
First day of the new year. America has to be America, no matter what.
There you go.
Start off the new year the same way you end it, with a bang.
Exactly.
But it's like, needless to say, it's just kind of like, it's so coincidental, you know.
It seems off.
It seems off.
Yeah.
It does, and it's, you know, was this stuff planted there to basically say,
Well,
hey, look, we caught him because you.
I'm
Come
gonna
on,
ask you another question. If it was planted and coincidental, right? Obviously, Luigi Mangione was caught, what, like 5 days after the actual shooting, 4 days after the actual shooting, so to
I
speak.
think it was maybe a week after the
Yeah,
shooting.
something like that, a long enough time, right? So the news was out there. Who in their right mind is gonna go out in public, even if it wasn't him, who in their right mind is gonna go out in public with a 3D printed gun, a 200-page manifesto saying how much they hate health insurance in the US in a backpack, especially when you somewhat look like the criminal.
And
So,
why would you go to and not to say anything, but even if he shot him, why would you go to Pennsylvania?
that I don't know.
Why not just like book it back to wherever you came, get on a freaking plane, and get the hell out of there as
That's what I was
quickly as
gonna say.
possible?
It's like, why are you staying? First of all, why are you staying inside the United States? Just leave the fucking country.
Drive to Mexico.
Just leave the country. Change your name in Mexico to something else, right? And just disappear.
like, it was, and there was a whole week nobody could find you.
That's it. You had
had
enough time to fuck off. But no, you wanted to go get a Big Mac in fucking Altoona, Pennsylvania. But again,
Seriously, out of all places. So that's why it doesn't, like 1 + 1 does not equal 2 in this situation.
it's
So,
peculiar. It's peculiar.
You know, and it just so happened to be him, and it's just kind of like, was it planted on him? That's a good question. I think we're going to find out in a couple of months here when we get to this court hearing. And I think for the most part, a lot of eyes are going to be on it,
Yeah.
and it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out in the public courts and how it's going to go. I think a lot of the sentiment right now, if you ask a lot of people, he's innocent.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And now the question is, it's going to go to a jury because they're not going to take a plea deal.
No. Absolutely not.
So it's going to go to a jury. And now I think for a lot of people, especially in the jury's mind, he's innocent.
Especially if the jury is composed of a lot of females.
Well, okay, that excluding that,
Jokes aside,
it's gonna be very hard to find impartial jury that hasn't been screwed over by healthcare.
Yeah. The other thing that I find very curious in this entire situation, and I find it extremely curious, is how unguarded Brian Thompson was. Like, we're talking about a CEO of an organization which has generally not the best standing with the public.
Shocker.
Right? Shocker with all we just spoken about. And he's a multi-millionaire. Like, just the insider trading allegation that he was in, that he sold $15.1 million worth of shares, right? Okay. So he's a multi-millionaire. I have never seen a CEO, right, be less guarded and protected than Brian Thompson when he got shot. The other thing, the killer, the way he was dressed, how in God's name did he walk into the Midtown Manhattan Hilton Hotel without anybody raising eyebrows and be like,
Oh, he never walked in.
Yeah, he was shot outside, right?
He was shot outside the hotel, on the street.
So
never walked in.
Begs the question, how was Brian Thompson so badly not guarded?
Well, like you said, he's an employee.
Okay, listen. Listen.
They're denying healthcare. You think they're going to pay for bodyguards?
Well, for somebody that fucking increased it from 44 million coverage to 50 plus
out of
million,
his pocket,
right?
No, but like we just talked about it. You just gave me this whole speech about why they would deny somebody.
Yeah, but there's other.
And now you're telling me you think they're going to pay for bodyguards for their CEO, who's clearly replaceable, which they replaced quite literally the day after. Yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah, but still, it's surprising. It's really.
It's not. It's the least surprising thing I'm going to hear all day.
I don't know.
He didn't have bodyguards. Yeah, go figure. He didn't have bodyguards. It's the most easily assumed.
They cheaped out on it. It's like no.
He's not the president of the United States. He's nobody famous. Nobody even knows who he is, and nobody really knew who he was until you had to basically go on United Health to find out who the CEO is. Like you could go look up a lot of major companies and go like, who's the CEO of Walmart?
Oh fuck.
Well, I don't freaking know. You think if I saw this guy walking around, you think I'd give a shit? I don't even know who the hell he is. Like, who's the CEO of Target? You probably have no idea. You have to go on the website to figure out who they are and get an image in your head.
Yeah.
But, like, you're not walking. If this guy walked around in downtown, I don't think anybody would know who he was. He's not really a public figure.
Yeah.
Everybody knows who Jeff Bezos is. That's different.
Yeah.
Elon Musk, everybody knows who they are because they make themselves, like, they put themselves in the public light. But like I said, you could probably name the top 50 wealthiest people alive and ask any average person. They got no idea who they are.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough.
So I guess he just assumed that nobody would really be after him. But even then, I mean, he was also, his family was also saying he was getting death threats and death calls. So I guess maybe it was more his decision not to have a bodyguard next to him. But if that was his decision, man, that was
a bad decision.
It's a bad decision, almost like having AI run your claims.
Run your claims denial processing.
Maybe if he didn't have AI run his claims denial processing, maybe he wouldn't have had so many death threats.
Yeah.
But it's like that. To me, like I said, I think Bill Burr, I know I said it before, but like Bill Burr has a great segment when he was talking about it. And he goes like, you want me to shed an ounce of tears towards them?
Yeah, there isn't.
When they've affected so many people's lives.
Yeah.
It's like, I have no tears to shed towards any of that. And I think CNN tried to play it and show like, oh, look how inhumane these people are. And he's like, we're inhumane.
Yeah.
It's like you alluded to, 90% claims denied.
That's it. So, like, look, the public frustration makes sense. Again, like, the whole point is, the reason why I was playing devil's advocate, it's a conversation that needs to be had. Because at the end of the day, whether we like to admit it or not, healthcare is a business in the US, right? And it's going to take many trillions to change that. Now, when we're talking about Luigi Mangione, man, I am waiting to really get some more news to come out from this guy, because there's a lot of like you said, there's a lot of things here that are sticking out as a bit weird. But I guess we have to wait and see. Any closing thoughts on your end that you would like the audience to hear before we kind of conclude the episode?
No, I think we said it all.
Okay.
I think we left it all on the table. I think we emptied all our chambers. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so to the audience, to close this episode off, look, we need to say this: the killing of CEO Brian Thompson really shook the corporate world, and that's true, right? And as you may have witnessed, the conversation is in reality just starting, especially for the healthcare and health insurance industry. So, just to cover up in my closing thoughts and opinions, the real dilemma here lies in balancing the standard corporate strategy of increasing revenues and minimizing costs, the business of the whole thing. But at the same time, with the specific industry that they're in, you're talking about human lives here and human beings, right? So every single time they're cutting corners, they're negatively affecting people's lives. It's a difficult situation. So, as always, we do want to hear from you as well. So please share your opinions on the matter. Was the killing warranted in your opinion? And what are your specific experiences with the healthcare industry from where you are from, right? Whether you're in a country where healthcare is essentially subsidized and it works better, or you're from the US where you've had bad run-ins with, let's say, United Health. We are really interested in hearing your perspective. Now, has this shocked you, or are you not surprised that this was coming to the person? You're not surprised that this was a situation that happened? And as always, the episode can be streamed on all streaming platforms, be it on Apple or Google Play, and obviously here on Spotify, which is our primary home. If you enjoyed the episode, we welcome you to subscribe, as we will be tackling major events and topics such as this one in the future as well. And honestly, share the episode with someone if you think they will enjoy this content. As always, my name is Theo, and I have been joined here by my incredible co-host Joe, and we will both see you on the next one.
This has been Uncut, and thank you for listening.